Imagine a world where the biggest retailer on Earth didn't exist. No glowing aisles, no midnight runs for diapers, no cheap groceries stacked high under fluorescent lights. And now, imagine this. The story of Walmart, the company that today employs over 2 million people, generates more money than the GDP of most countries, and touches nearly every American home, did not begin with wealth or privilege or a golden inheritance. It began with a poor farm boy, a boy named Sam Walton, who was told he had no future in retail, who was nearly fired for his first sales job, who bought a failing store in a dusty Arkansas town and turned it into the spark of an empire. This is not just a story about business, it is a story of risk, desperation, and faith, about a man who mortgaged everything he had, not once, but again and again, gambling on a dream the world laughed at. It is a story of small-town America, where faith and hard work could still rewrite destiny. A story of victories and betrayals, of doors slammed shut, of failures so crushing they could have ended it all. But Sam refused to quit. And in his refusal, he built more than a company. He built a revolution. From ice cream machines cranking on sidewalks to towering supercenters stretching across the globe, Walmart's rise is a tale of boldness, brilliance, and controversy. And tonight, you'll hear the untold truth, the story of the farm boy who bent the laws of retail, who changed how the world shops, and who proved that even the smallest dream in the humblest hands can grow to change the course of history. Imagine a single number, $572 billion. That was Walmart's revenue in 2021, more than the GDP of most countries, more than the combined fortunes of the richest men alive. With over 2 million employees, Walmart isn't just a company, it is the world's largest employer, a nation inside a nation. It feeds families, pays wages, drives down prices, and reshapes entire towns with the flick of a blue logo. And yet, if we peel back the glossy veneer of corporate dominance, we discover something almost unbelievable. This empire, this titan of modern retail, nearly never happened. Its beginnings were not in skyscrapers or boardrooms, but in the heart of a poor farm boy, trudging through the dust of Oklahoma, carrying rejection like a second skin. That boy was Samuel Moore Walton. Born in 1918, he grew up in a household where survival meant scraping, where his father juggled small business deals and debts, and where his mother milked cows just to put bread on the table. He was not born rich. He was not born powerful. In fact, the experts, those who thought they could see the future of retail, told him he had no career in the business. They said he wasn't cut out for it. But Sam Walton refused to be a statistic. This is not just the story of Walmart. This is the story of defiance, of resilience, of a man who took the last chance he was given and turned it into the most powerful empire of modern capitalism. And to understand it, we must begin where it all started, in the barren soil of a struggling farm, under the shadow of hardship, where a boy learned how much sweat it takes to make a single dollar.
Sam Walton was born in Kingfisher, Oklahoma, on March 29, 1918. His father, Thomas Gibson Walton, was a farmer. His mother, Nancy Lee Walton, managed what she could of the household. But farming during the Great Depression was brutal, unpredictable, unforgiving. The soil was stingy. The markets were cruel. The Waltons move often, chasing survival, shifting from Oklahoma to Missouri, from patch of land to patch of land, searching for what farmers called greener pastures, though they rarely found them. For young Sam, stability was a luxury he never knew. Instead, he learned flexibility, the ability to adapt to constant change. His father taught him something strange, that even when there was no money in farming, there could still be money in deals. Thomas Walton had a knack for turning a small profit, buying and selling livestock, trading goods. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept the family afloat. His mother, meanwhile, started a modest milk business. Every morning, Sam would milk the cows, then deliver jars of milk door to door, sometimes still in his football uniform from school practice. These weren't just chores, they were lessons. Every ounce of milk, every nickel earned carried the weight of discipline. Work was not optional, it was life. But home was not a sanctuary. Sam later wrote that his parents were the two most quarrelsome people to ever live together. Arguments cut through the house like a storm. His father was often gone, chasing work. His mother was often exasperated, carrying the burden of the household alone. To escape, Sam turned outward. He became a Boy Scout, rising quickly through leadership ranks. He joined sports teams, excelling in football, basketball, track. On the field, he discovered something. He wasn't the biggest, wasn't the fastest, but he had grit. He could outlast, outwork, outpersist anyone. That, he realized, was his gift. And in those teenage years, Sam Walton made a silent promise to himself. He would never settle for survival alone. He would build something lasting. By the time the Walton family settled in Columbia, Missouri, Sam was a teenager with a work ethic that seemed almost unnatural. He worked odd jobs, delivering newspapers, waiting tables in exchange for meals, helping in any way he could to earn $1. Each coin he held in his hand reminded him how precious money was. The Great Depression carved humility into him. He saw neighbors lose farms, families splinter under debt, men broken by forces beyond their control. He saw how easily poverty could humiliate a man, how quickly despair could seep into a household. But he also saw something else, the dignity that came from honest work, no matter how small. At David H. Hickman High School, Sam was popular, though not because he was charming or wealthy. It was because he carried himself with optimism. He was the boy who smiled through struggle, who lifted others even when he had little himself. But at home, though, the storms raged on. His parents' quarrels never eased. Sam found himself yearning for stability, for a family life he could one day build differently. He found refuge in football practice, in the Boy Scouts, in leadership roles that distracted him from the chaos of home. When he graduated in 1935, he did not yet know what his future held, but he knew this: he wanted to control his own destiny, and for that, he needed education. So, he enrolled at the University of Missouri. It was a decision that would change everything. At the University of Missouri, Sam studied economics. But studying wasn't enough. He worked tirelessly to support himself. He delivered newspapers, he waited tables, he sold magazines. Every hustle was another survival tactic. And then came the opportunity that would give him his first taste of retail. In 1940, after graduating, he took a job at J.C. Penney, then just a small store in Des Moines, Iowa. His pay was $75 a week, a modest income, but for Sam, it was a chance. The problem was, he was terrible at it. Sam hated bookkeeping. He couldn't stand making customers wait while he filled out forms. His paperwork was sloppy, his receipts often late. His boss told him bluntly that he had no future in retail. He nearly got fired. But here's what saved him: salesmanship. Sam Walton had a gift. He cared about people. He remembered their names. He remembered what they liked, what they needed. He didn't see customers as numbers, he saw them as neighbors. And people responded. His sales soared, earning him an extra $25 a month in commissions. Sam's takeaway was simple but radical. People mattered more than paperwork. If he could win people's trust, if he could make their lives easier, everything else would follow. That belief would stay with him for the rest of his life.
Then came the war. In 1942, as America plunged into World War II, Sam left his shaky retail career behind and joined the U.S. Army. He was placed in the Intelligence Corps, where his leadership quickly elevated him to the rank of captain. The war years were formative. Sam learned structure, discipline, the value of strategy. He saw how coordination and logistics could move entire armies. And later, those same principles would shape how he thought about supply chains and retail distribution. But amidst war, he also found love. Stationed in Oklahoma, he met Helen Robeson, the daughter of a prosperous banker. She was sharp, independent, and not easily impressed, but Sam's earnestness won her over. They married on Valentine's Day, 1943. Helen would become Sam's anchor. Her steady presence counterbalanced his restless drive.
When he returned from the war in 1945, Sam was not just a veteran, he was a husband, a father, and a man hungry to build a future. With a $20,000 loan from his father-in-law and $5,000 from his own savings, he bought his first store, a Ben Franklin variety store in Newport, Arkansas. It was a bold gamble. Most men returning from the war sought stable jobs, steady paychecks, but Sam risked everything on a business that was already failing. The lease was brutal. 5% of sales went directly to rent. Worse, the store had been poorly managed for years, driving customers away. Sam had bought a sinking ship, but what he lacked in experience, he made up for in determination. He threw himself into the work. Every morning he unlocked the store. Every night he closed it himself. He studied every detail, every sale, every customer. He asked, "What do people want? What frustrates them? How can I make their lives easier?" And then Sam began breaking the rules. Ben Franklin required store owners to buy merchandise through their outlets, but Sam knew he could find goods cheaper elsewhere. He scoured wholesalers, found loopholes in his contract, and stocked shelves with items at lower costs than his competitors. He cut prices, not margins, betting that high volume would outweigh slim profits. It was a revelation. Customers noticed. They flocked to his store. They told friends. Sales rose fast. Within his first year, Sam increased sales by 45%. By year 3, his store was making $175,000 annually, one of the top-performing variety stores in the region. He had not only saved a failing business, he had turned it into a success story. But hidden in the lease, a mistake was waiting, a mistake that would nearly destroy him. The Walton family loved Newport. It was where Sam and Helen built friendships, where 3 of their 4 children were born. The town embraced them. The store thrived. It seemed, finally, that stability was theirs. And then came the betrayal. In 1950, Sam discovered something devastating. His lease had no renewal clause. When the contract ended, the landlord could simply take back the store. And that is exactly what he planned to do. Sam had poured his life into this business. He had raised sales beyond anyone's expectations. He had built goodwill in the community, and yet, because of one overlooked clause, he was being kicked out. He wrote later that it was the lowest point of his life. He said, "I felt sick to my stomach. I had built the best variety store in the whole region, worked hard in the community, done everything right, and now I was being forced to leave." The news spread quickly. People whispered, "Poor Sam Walton. He's finished." But Sam was not finished. He was humiliated, yes, wounded, yes, but he was not broken. If anything, he was more determined than ever. Packing up his family, Sam began looking for a new opportunity. He was tired of leases, tired of being at someone else's mercy. If he was going to build something again, it would be on his terms. And in a small town called Bentonville, Arkansas, he found it. An old store space on the town square. This time, he signed a 99-year lease. He swore he would never be betrayed again. The Walton family moved to Bentonville in 1950. It was small, sleepy, skeptical. When Sam opened his new store, Walton's Five and Dime, the locals whispered, "We'll give him 60 days, maybe 90. He won't last longer than that." Sam ignored them. He threw himself into the work with the same obsessive energy as before. This time he tried something new. He embraced self-service. Instead of clerks fetching items for customers, shoppers could browse the shelves themselves. It saved labor, sped up shopping, and created a sense of abundance. People loved it. Sam also leaned harder into his philosophy. Low prices, always. He sought out suppliers,
cut costs wherever possible, and pass the savings to customers. The formula worked. Sales grew. Bentonville transformed. People from neighboring towns began driving in just to shop at Walton's Five and Dime. By the end of the decade, Sam owned 15 stores across Arkansas. But something gnawed at him. Even with 15 stores, profits weren't what they could be. He worked harder than ever, yet the margins stayed thin. Sam realized he needed a new strategy, something bold, something revolutionary. And in 1962, he would gamble bigger than ever before. The idea was simple but radical: a discount department store in small towns. At the time, discount stores existed, but mostly in cities. They offered bargains on a few items, not their entire stock. And no one believed small towns could support such a store. Retail experts laughed at the idea. Sam didn't care. He saw something others didn't. Rural America was full of families who wanted value, who didn't want to drive hours to the city, who would flock to a store that offered everything they needed at the lowest possible price. But to make it work, he needed money, lots of it. He mortgaged his home, borrowed heavily, and staked everything on the gamble. In July 1962, in Rogers, Arkansas, he opened the first Walmart. The response was electric. Customers flooded in. They couldn't believe the prices. The aisles were crowded, the parking lot overflowing. Sam's gamble had worked. Still, he was restless. He pushed harder. Longer store hours, bigger parking lots, cheaper shelving, direct deals with manufacturers to cut out middlemen. Every innovation was designed with one thing in mind: the customer. By the end of the 1960s, Walmart had expanded rapidly. The experts who once laughed were now paying attention. A storm was brewing. The 1970s marked Walmart's transformation from a bold experiment to a revolution. Sam's strategy was ruthless in its simplicity: cut prices, expand fast, keep costs low. He opened stores near distribution warehouses to ensure one-day delivery. He bought directly from manufacturers. He avoided expensive advertising, relying instead on word of mouth and local buzz. He also shared profits with employees, calling them associates instead of workers. They received stock options, cash bonuses, and a sense of ownership in the company's growth. It was unusual in retail, and it worked. Associates felt invested. They worked harder, stayed longer, and believed in the mission. By 1970, Walmart went public, raising $5 million in its initial offering. Investors who bought in would later see returns beyond imagination. One man who spent $1,650 on Walmart shares saw them grow into $700,000 by the 1980s. By the end of the decade, Walmart had nearly 300 stores. By the 1980s, it was opening 100 new stores each year. The company was no longer just a business. It was a force reshaping America. But with success came criticism. Small retailers complained that Walmart crushed local competition. Critics accused Sam of driving mom-and-pop stores out of business. Sam's answer was blunt: customers are free to choose where to shop. The whole thing is driven by the customer. And customers had spoken. They wanted Walmart. By 1983, Sam introduced Sam's Club, wholesale stores aimed at small business owners and families. Once again, it was a hit. By 1990, Walmart had over 1,000 stores, employing 150,000 people. The farm boy from Oklahoma had built an empire. But his journey was not yet over.
By the early 1980s, Walmart was no longer a regional curiosity. It had become a juggernaut. But to Sam Walton, growth was not enough. He was driven by an almost unnatural restlessness, a hunger that refused to be satisfied. Sam woke before dawn, often arriving at the office before his associates, scribbling notes on yellow legal pads, planning expansions, brainstorming ideas. He toured stores constantly, sometimes unannounced, walking the aisles, checking displays, talking to customers. He believed leadership required presence, not distance. What made Sam unique wasn't genius, it was discipline. He wasn't above sweeping floors or stocking shelves. If something was wrong in a store, he fixed it himself. His humility inspired loyalty, but it also intimidated rivals. By 1983, Walmart introduced Sam's Club. It was simple, brilliant, offered goods in bulk at wholesale prices. At first, skeptics doubted families would pay a membership fee to shop. But Sam knew human psychology. People loved bargains, and membership made them feel like insiders. Within years, Sam's Club became another billion-dollar success. Still, critics grew louder. Small businesses shuttered in towns where Walmart arrived. Community leaders accused the company of monopolistic practices. Journalists questioned whether everyday low prices came at the cost of workers' livelihoods. Sam responded with his trademark pragmatism. "Our job is to serve customers. The customers decide who wins." To him, Walmart's rise was not about conquest, but about trust. As long as families kept walking through his doors, he believed he was doing something right. The relentless drive that had once pushed a poor farm boy to sell milk door to door was now powering the largest retail revolution in American history. By the mid-1980s, Walmart had become a Wall Street darling. Its stock price soared. Analysts hailed it as one of the fastest-growing companies in America. Investors who had once dismissed it now scrambled to buy shares. But Sam never cared much for Wall Street's praise. He cared about the people in his stores. Every Saturday morning, he hosted meetings with associates, often dressed casually, sometimes even wearing costumes to keep morale light. He wanted workers to feel like partners, not subordinates. In 1985, Forbes named Sam Walton the richest man in America. His fortune surpassed $2 billion. The farm boy who once delivered milk in football gear was now a billionaire many times over. Yet Sam seemed almost embarrassed by the title. He still drove a beat-up Ford pickup. He still wore simple clothes, lived in the same modest house in Bentonville, and fished in the same lakes. Wealth to him was not about luxury. It was about freedom, the freedom to build, to grow, to give back. But behind the success, cracks were forming. Walmart's aggressive expansion strained supply chains. Critics argued that low prices were possible only by squeezing suppliers and workers. Unions tried, unsuccessfully, to organize Walmart employees, painting the company as anti-worker. Sam faced these storms with his usual calm. Control your expenses better than your competition. That's where you find your competitive advantage. To him, complaints were distractions. His focus was laser-sharp. Keep prices low, keep customers happy. By the end of the decade, Walmart's annual revenues exceeded $25 billion. The company had 276 stores in 1980. By 1990, it had over 1,500. The revolution was no longer regional or even national. Walmart was preparing to go global. Sam Walton was more than a businessman. He was a philosopher of retail, a man who distilled success into simple principles. His rules weren't complex. They were almost deceptively ordinary. Commit to your business, share your profits, motivate your partners, celebrate your successes, listen to everyone, keep expenses low, swim upstream. To Sam, these weren't slogans. They were survival. He lived them daily. He made associates shareholders, giving them a stake in the company's success. He kept overhead costs brutalistically low. He demanded feedback from clerks, janitors, managers, anyone who had eyes on the ground. He also believed in competition as a teacher. "He probably learned more from my competitors than anybody else," he admitted. He studied rival stores obsessively, often walking into them unannounced, taking notes, and shamelessly borrowing ideas. To him, pride was the enemy of progress. Sam's greatest gift was not vision, it was humility combined with persistence. He didn't pretend to know everything. He listened, he experimented, he failed fast and tried again. By the late 1980s, these principles had hardened into Walmart's DNA. Other companies might boast innovation or glamour. Walmart boasted something else: trust. Customers trusted that Walmart would always be the cheapest. Workers trusted they had a chance to rise. Investors trusted in relentless growth. And it all stemmed from a poor farm boy who once believed every nickel mattered.
But as Walmart's empire grew, so did its shadows. Small-town America was transforming. Where once local grocers and family-owned shops lined main streets, now Walmart supercenters dominated. Critics argued Walmart hollowed out communities, destroying independent businesses. They called it the Walmart effect. Inside the company, wages became a battleground. Employees, while proud to be called associates, often complained about low pay and long hours. Unions accused Walmart of undercutting labor rights. Reports surfaced of suppliers overseas facing intense pressure to cut costs, raising questions about working conditions abroad. Sam listened, but rarely flinched. He believed the critics misunderstood his mission. He said, "Our whole theory is very simple.
We want to lower the cost of living for people. We want them to live better. And to millions of Americans, he succeeded. Families on tight budgets could afford more because of Walmart. Household savings added up. The company's presence meant cheaper groceries, clothes, and goods. For many, Walmart was not a destroyer, but a lifeline. The debate raged on. Was Walmart a savior of the working class or a destroyer of small-town identity? Was Sam Walton a hero or a villain? The truth, perhaps, was both. Even as criticism mounted, Walmart's growth was unstoppable. By 1990, it was the largest retailer in the nation, and Sam, now in his 70s, was about to face a battle no expansion could shield him from. In the late 1980s, Sam Walton was diagnosed with cancer. The relentless drive that had carried him for decades now collided with the fragility of the human body. He underwent treatments, but the disease progressed. For a man who had built an empire on discipline, illness was the one opponent he could not outwork, yet he faced it with the same humility he had brought to every challenge. He did not retreat from the public eye. He did not wall himself off in luxury. He kept working, kept visiting stores, kept encouraging associates. In 1992, frail but determined, Sam accepted the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President George H.W. Bush. His voice shook, but his message was clear. Gratitude. Gratitude to his employees, his customers, his family. He insisted the honor was not his alone, but belonged to everyone who had built Walmart with him. On April 5, 1992, Sam Walton died at the age of 74. At the time of his death, Walmart had over 1,700 stores and annual revenues exceeding $104 billion. The poor farm boy from Oklahoma, once told he had no career in retail, had created the largest retailer in American history. His death marked the end of an era, but not the end of the story. Walmart would continue to grow, to dominate, to spark debate, and Sam's legacy, complicated and profound, would live on in every store, every bargain, every customer who walked through its sliding glass doors. Sam Walton's passing in 1992 was a moment of silence across America. Thousands of employees wept. Customers, many of whom had never met him, left flowers outside stores. He was more than a businessman. He had become a symbol of the American dream. But death creates a vacuum. Without Sam, would Walmart stay true to his vision, or would it become something else entirely? The Walton family, led by his wife Helen and their children, inherited both wealth and responsibility. Sam's oldest son, Rob, became chairman of the board. The company pledged to uphold Sam's philosophy: always low prices, always. Yet the world was changing. Technology was accelerating. Global trade was expanding. Competitors like Target and Kmart lurked in the shadows, eager to challenge Walmart's throne. Sam's departure left associates asking, could Walmart still thrive without his restless energy? The answer would come quickly. Under new leadership, Walmart expanded at an even faster pace. By the mid-1990s, stores appeared not only across America, but also in Mexico, Canada, and beyond. The poor farm boy's dream was no longer American. It was global. Still, critics whispered, without Sam's steady hand, the company risked losing its soul.
In 1991, just before Sam's death, Walmart had already tested international waters with a joint venture in Mexico. Afterward, the company plunged headfirst into globalization. Canada, China, Germany, the United Kingdom, no market was too distant, no challenge too great. For customers abroad, Walmart was a revelation. In countries where shopping was fragmented across small markets, Walmart superstores offered convenience, variety, and prices never seen before. Mexican families could buy groceries, electronics, and clothing all under one roof. Canadian shoppers embraced the promise of affordability. But international expansion was not always smooth. In Germany, Walmart clashed with cultural norms. Smiling greeters at the entrance, a signature American touch, made German shoppers uncomfortable. Strict labor laws conflicted with Walmart's anti-union stance. The venture struggled,
and eventually Walmart retreated. In South Korea, Walmart failed to adapt to local tastes. Shoppers preferred smaller packages and fresher produce, while Walmart offered bulk items and mass displays. Once again, it withdrew. Yet for every failure, there were successes. In Mexico and China, Walmart became a household name. By the 2000s, the company was operating in over a dozen countries, proving that Sam Walton's idea, low prices through efficiency and scale, was universal. Walmart was no longer a company. It was an empire. With great power came great scrutiny. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, Walmart had become both admired and despised. Admirers pointed to its ability to save families money, to bring modern retail to rural and underserved areas, to employ millions. But critics saw another story: small businesses vanishing, low wages, lack of health benefits, and pressure on global supply chains. Documentaries labeled Walmart as ruthless. Workers in America filed lawsuits alleging unpaid overtime. Labor activists accused the company of exploiting overseas workers. Economists debated the Walmart effect, arguing whether its savings to consumers outweighed its costs to society. Perhaps the most damaging criticism was cultural. Some accused Walmart of homogenizing America, erasing local identity, turning every town into a clone of another, with the same fluorescent lights, the same endless aisles, the same prices. And yet, the customers kept coming. Despite the criticisms, Walmart's sales climbed. For many families, principles mattered less than survival. If Walmart could stretch their paycheck further, it was worth it. Sam Walton had once said, "There's only one boss, the customer," and the customer, for all the noise, was still voting with their feet. As the 21st century dawned, a new competitor emerged. Not Target, not Kmart, but something far more radical: Amazon. While Walmart reigned supreme in physical stores, Amazon was building an invisible empire online. Its warehouses hummed quietly, its website attracted millions, and its model threatened to undermine Walmart's dominance. At first, Walmart underestimated the challenge. Leadership assumed customers would always prefer to walk into stores, to touch products, to see them before buying. But as broadband expanded and delivery logistics improved, Amazon proved them wrong. Walmart scrambled to catch up. It launched Walmart.com, invested billions in e-commerce, and experimented with delivery services. It leveraged its physical stores as distribution hubs, a strength Amazon couldn't match. Yet the struggle was existential. Walmart's DNA was built around physical presence: land, stores, shelves, people. Amazon's DNA was digital: data, algorithms, speed, invisibility. Still, Walmart adapted. It purchased Jet.com, invested in logistics, and launched grocery pickup and delivery. Slowly, it carved its place in the digital frontier. The question lingered: could Walmart reinvent itself for the internet age, or was its empire destined to be eroded by one built entirely on the cloud?
By the late 2000s, Walmart had become more than a company. It was a mirror of America itself, loved and hated, admired and feared. Its scale was almost incomprehensible: over 2 million employees worldwide, over 10,000 stores, annual revenues exceeding $500 billion, larger than the GDP of entire nations. Walmart had reshaped supply chains, forced manufacturers to change, influenced global trade patterns. A decision made in Bentonville, Arkansas, could ripple across oceans, altering how farmers in Mexico planted crops or how factories in China operated. And yet, at its core, the story remains simple. A poor farm boy named Sam Walton, told he would never succeed in retail, had built the largest retailer in human history. His philosophy of low prices lived on, but so did the debates. Was Walmart a force of good, democratizing access to goods, lifting standards of living? Or was it a machine, erasing individuality, exploiting labor, chasing profits at all costs? As the 21st century advanced, Walmart stood at a crossroads. Its legacy was undeniable, its future uncertain. The empire was vast, but the questions grew louder. Would Walmart adapt to new realities,
Or would it become the very kind of outdated giant it had once replaced? By the 2010s, Walmart was more than a retailer. It was an organism, a living force woven into the daily lives of hundreds of millions of people. A mother in Ohio fed her children with groceries bought at Walmart. A student in Texas worked night shifts to pay tuition. A farmer in China supplied produce destined for Bentonville's shelves. But the weight of that size pressed heavily. Reports surfaced of Walmart associates needing food stamps to survive. Activists held up signs demanding higher wages, chanting outside stores across the nation. The media painted Walmart as both savior and villain, the place that gave ordinary families affordable goods, and yet also the place where dreams of small-town merchants went to die. For the Walton heirs, Alice, Rob, Jim, and the rest, this was not just business, it was legacy. They inherited a father's vision, but also his burdens. Each decision they made now echoed louder than Sam Walton's original footsteps on the creaky wooden floors of his first store. Could they honor their father's dream of serving the customer while addressing the humanity of those who served the customer? The question lingered in every press conference, every shareholder meeting, every whispered conversation in Bentonville's headquarters. The world was shifting beneath Walmart's feet. By the mid-2010s, a wave of cultural awakening swept across America. People began asking not just how cheap is this product, but who made it, at what cost, what kind of future am I funding when I swipe my card? Climate change, sustainability, human rights, these weren't abstract ideas anymore, they were demands. Walmart, once accused of squeezing suppliers dry, began pressuring those same suppliers in a new direction: cut waste, reduce packaging, improve labor standards. Solar panels appeared on rooftops. Electric trucks entered its fleets. Environmentalists who once called Walmart an enemy found themselves in reluctant partnership with it. Inside stores, wages rose. Health benefits expanded, not perfectly, not universally, but undeniably. A company built on efficiency was now experimenting with empathy. The irony was rich. Walmart, born from a poor farmer's desperation to prove himself, now faced the challenge of proving to the world that efficiency and compassion could coexist. Could the empire built on relentless scale learn to embrace humanity without losing its edge? It is easy to imagine Sam Walton walking the aisles of a modern Walmart supercenter, his cowboy hat tilted forward, his sharp eyes scanning end caps and price tags. Would he approve of what he saw? Or would he frown at the bureaucracy, the politics, the complexity? Sam was not a saint. He drove his associates hard. He undercut competitors with cold precision. Yet beneath it, he was a man who believed in people. He shook hands, remembered names, celebrated small victories. In Bentonville, there is still a museum dedicated to his first store, Walton's Five and Dime. The floorboards creak, the shelves are humble, the walls are covered with memories. Visitors walk in and realize that the behemoth called Walmart was nothing more than a dream scribbled in the margins of a farm boy's life. Perhaps Sam's ghost does not demand perfection from the empire he left behind. Perhaps it only whispers, "Remember the customer, remember the people, never forget where you came from." And in that whisper lies the truth. Walmart's story is not about buildings or balance sheets. It is about families, about hunger met with bread, about children clothed for winter, about dignity found in a paycheck, however small.
There are towns in America where Main Street still bears scars. The little hardware shop closed. The local grocer shuttered. Some people still point at Walmart and say, "You did this." But walk deeper into the aisles, and you see another story. The single mother comparing prices on diapers. The grandfather stretching his fixed income to buy both medicine and gifts for his grandchildren. The immigrant worker sending money back home after a shift at the register. Walmart is not a clean story of triumph. It is a messy one, tangled in contradictions. It took away, but it also gave. It wounded, but it also healed. Perhaps forgiveness lies not in absolving the company of its faults, but in understanding the complexity of its role in our lives. Forgiveness in the aisles means recognizing that Walmart is both machine and mirror, reflecting back the choices, the hungers, the dreams of ordinary people. When we see Walmart, we see ourselves, our desire for more, our struggle to survive, our endless chase for value. To forgive Walmart is, in some sense, to forgive our own contradictions. And so we arrive at the end of the story, or perhaps the beginning of another. In 1962, Sam Walton opened a single store in Rogers, Arkansas. In 2021, Walmart's revenues surpassed $570 billion. From a poor farmer's gamble to the largest employer on earth, the journey defies imagination. But here is the final truth. Walmart is not just Sam Walton's dream. It belongs to everyone who has ever walked through its doors, everyone who has ever worked its aisles, everyone who has ever relied on its prices to make ends meet. It belongs to the critics too, to the voices that demanded better wages, cleaner supply chains, respect for workers. It belongs to the customers who pushed Walmart to change, to evolve, to try, however imperfectly, to reconcile profit with humanity. In the end, Walmart is America, ambitious, flawed, relentless, resilient. It is the farm boy who refused to accept failure, who mortgaged everything for a dream, who believed that ordinary people deserved more for less. And maybe that is why the story of Walmart moves us, not because it is perfect, but because it is human. As the lights dim on this story, we are left not with judgment, but with reflection, forgiveness, compassion, love. For in the story of Sam Walton and Walmart, we are reminded that greatness is not born from perfection, but from persistence, that legacy is not measured in dollars, but in the lives touched, and that even in the most unexpected places, even in the aisles of a discount store, there lies a lesson about what it means to dream, to struggle, to build, to forgive, and to love.